I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. That theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints, wirepoints.org. All things Illinois policy related. Potential gubernatorial candidate, too, we talked about last week. We'll get to that a bit more. But first, at his presser yesterday, President Trump, his presser detailing his intervention into the District of Columbia to restore the district to a place that is safer and that is sans homeless encampments and is beautified. He also suggested that, look, there are other cities that have the same, if not even worse, struggles. One of them's in Chicago, and he's not afraid to turn his sights to the Midwest, saying this about the two principals here. That would be BLM Brandon and Jelly Belly.
If we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster. We have a mayor there who's totally incompetent. He's an incompetent man.
It's not surprising to me that
Pritzker's an incompetent. His family threw him out of the business, and he ran for governor. And now I understand he wants to be president. But I noticed he lost a little weight, so maybe he has a chance.
Yeah, we're all very excited about the weight loss of the governor. I want him to live a long and healthy life in as a private citizen, preferably. Anyway, the response from the invocation of Chicago and the little jabbing of BLM Brandon and Pritzker came quickly. First, BLM Brandon.
It would destabilize our city, quite frankly. No one in the city of Chicago, residents that I've spoken to, the people of this city, no one has ever asked for the National Guard.
And of course, the residents that he speaks to are representative of the larger opinion of 2.7 million residents. Of course. How thick is your bubble? And we know, as mentioned earlier in the program, that in point of fact, despite the hand-wringing going on right now in the halls of power here and within the propaganda arms of the Chicago Democrats, that it was actually members of their party who previously have suggested the need for the National Guard to be called in to deal with endemic violence in Chicago. So Trump's suggestion is old news, actually. The Democrats got there first, sort of like with gerrymandering. But now when a political opponent does it, now it's time for the performative hysterics. I get it. And here was Pritzker's response. I need to give Pritzker his turn.
It's not surprising to me that he suggests violating the law. He's done it many times and been convicted of it 34 times.
Ted Dabrowski, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Dan. How are you?
Good. So the suggestion that Trump could intervene in Chicago if those two individuals we just heard from can't find their way to make the city and the region a bit safer than it is currently.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I think, number one, I'm reminded of what Selena Zito said back in the day, that the press takes him literally but not seriously, and I think what needs to be done is they need to take him seriously but not literally. I don't think he wants to bring in the the National Guard. It's his message, and he's so smart about it. It's his message to warn Chicago, warn Illinois that and he's right. We've had the highest murder rate 13 years in a row, and I've talked about this endlessly, and the press doesn't pick it up. Pritzker doesn't care. Johnson doesn't care. 13 years in a row, number one in murders, and a guy like Pritzker, a guy like Trump knows that. And, he senses it. He knows it. So he's out there messaging. He's not threatening Florida. He's not threatening Texas with the National Guard. He's threatening Illinois, and for a good reason, because we have done nothing about this crazy murder rate for more than a decade now.
That's a good point. I mean, Houston, Texas, that's a Dem-dominated city, but you don't hear Houston being called out very often. Not on this count. Is number one for murders in the aggregate nationally. That's what you mean. I found it interesting. All the headlines and the chyrons on TV are about lowest murder rate in 30 years in D.C. and crime is falling and so on and so forth. Well, as I mentioned before, I mean, it's not very persuasive if you compare D.C.'s murder rate now to D.C.'s murder rate of recent vintage, when your murder rate is still higher, your murder rate per capita is still higher than Baghdad's. The fact that you're doing a little bit better than you were doing doesn't mean that this is that you're providing the quality of life that your residents expect and deserve.
Well, that's right. And there's a lot of people say, Ted, be careful. Crime is really down, so you can't really talk about it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is just because we're down, and it is true, right? We're down across the country. Baltimore's at 50-year lows. I was looking at this morning. I was looking at all the cities. Everybody's down dramatically. So it's not so much, what Johnson's going to say. Look what I did in Chicago. And it's not true at all. I mean, this is a massive wave, and it has a lot to do with Trump coming in, getting away from COVID, just exhaustion with crime. I don't know, right? And it'll take us a long time to figure out what happened. But we can't get relaxed just because we have a good year. No, it's still horrific, and we still got 240 murders already this year in Chicago. And yes, that's low, but tell that to the parents who are losing their kids, or tell that to somebody who lost their mother or father. It's still crazy. 240 murders. We won't hit 500 this year, but it's still horrific. And not only that, Dan, it's so much higher than New York, which is 3 times bigger than we are.
Well,
so we got to.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is, can we just reset the table? Like, the expectation to live in Chicago and be content is I didn't get murdered or carjacked today. Don't we have a little bit like higher expectation, desire for quality of life than I was not a victim of crime today?
Yeah, and I think Trump, and I forget who you're talking to earlier, but Trump is trying to change the model, right? It's not good enough just to have a lower murder rate. Let's have safe cities. I mean, it's a really ambitious goal, but it's a beautiful goal. I mean, you want Chicago to be safe for everybody, not just in the Loop, right? But for all the people who are in the South and West neighborhoods. It's what they deserve, right? But we've destroyed policing. We've destroyed leadership. We have to flip it. This is the big problem I keep having, and this is the argument I keep having. If you don't address this, which is what Trump is doing, if you don't address this problem, if you don't acknowledge it, you'll never fix it. And that's my problem with the media, with Pritzker, with Johnson. They don't want to address it. They'd rather hide it, and the media follows along, with the exception of your show and a few others. And this is why it doesn't get fixed, because it gets hidden. Just like the school stuff where kids can't read, just like the outmigration, right? Pritzker's hiding the population loss. It's the same thing over and over.
Well, the other thing that he does, too, is stake out real territory, like where we want to be. Now, it may be complicated to get there, but where we need to be. And he mentioned specifically, in relation to Chicago and other cities, no cash bail. So that implicates the Pritzker Safety Act, the Pritzker Purge Law. And it's baffling to me, given the documented preventable crimes and preventable deaths and victimization of people. That has not been prevented, that has been exacerbated, that has been facilitated by the Safety Act. That we don't have a Republican Party staking out, one of the things that we're going to do, one of the things I'm going to do as governor, one of the things we're going to do as a party, if we were to gain political power in this state, is we're going to repeal the Safety Act. No, we're not going to tinker on the margins. We're going to repeal it. And if you want to talk about sort of sensible bail reforms on the margins, then we can have that conversation after we reset the table and hold people over, to have the disposition be to hold repeat violent offenders over for trial and not release them pre-trial, essentially of their own recognizance on electronic monitoring, where at some small percentage, but it's still a big impact, commit violent crimes while awaiting trial for another violent crime. We're not doing that anymore. That's over if we get in. And then if you want to talk about things on the margins, these anecdotes that actually turn out to be apocryphal that the left is always trying to sell, then we can talk about those. But we're going to reset the table. We're going to get back to a place of, to borrow a phrase from BLM Brandon, stability, and then we can talk about some of those things that you want to address on the margins.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always the case when you have a problem. When you have a huge, when you have a leak, you have to plug the leak, then you figure out how to fix it properly. The good news is, Dan, I've had a few discussions with some Republicans, and they're trying to put together, some kind of platform that, for example, includes right there, eliminate the Safety Act, start over. And, that's a good point. That some people wanted to say, well, let's just fix the bad things in it. But I think you're right. Let's get rid of it and then put in the right things rather than trying to fix a bad bill. There's a lot of bad bills we have in Illinois, bad laws, and sometimes we're forced to try to fix them. So we're trying to tinker the margins, and that doesn't help. And we've seen that it doesn't help in Illinois. Nothing. And this is again back to the Trump point. Nothing in Illinois right now and in Chicago where you tinker at the margins, will you make things better? Right? We're so deep into the problem when you're 13 years in a row as the murder leader of the country. You can't tinker to improve things. You have to do real reforms.
What's your sense at how Pritzker and company, Juliana Stratton in tow as well, are doing in defending Illinois' gerrymandered congressional map while decrying what Governor Abbott is attempting to do in Texas? Pritzker just got completely steamrolled by Kristen Welker over the weekend at Meet the Press, but Juliana Stratton's message was still the best. The reason it's 14-3 Democrats to Republicans here is because of good governance. We had competitive races and we won them all because we've delivered. And not even people who voted for Pritzker and Stratton, at least a significant percentage of them, not even they believe that.
Yeah, I saw NBC5 even criticizing some of this stuff like the map. So it's getting really good attention, and I guess I think the hope would be that Illinoisans who typically can't see through the problems, most of them see the hypocrisy because Pritzker's out there getting hit pretty hard. Now Pritzker's Pritzker. He even when Welker was hitting him, he still came back and said, well, Texas is illegal, and a lot of people might just buy his answer, but I think they're doing great damage to Illinois nationally, and that will put more pressure on Illinois, and hopefully we don't only need inside pressure, we need outside pressure. Trump's putting pressure, the media's putting pressure right now in Illinois. We put out a piece today that shows just how much our congressional delegation has fallen in the last since 1950. We're losing so much representation in Congress, a lot of it because of population loss, of course.
Yeah.
And Texas and Florida, they're skyrocketing. So in this ridiculous discussion of gerrymandering, the underlying problem is we're shrinking and they're gaining power. And that's the way it should be. If they're going to have better laws and better, more attractive states, they're going to attract people and grow. And we're shrinking. But back to the Trump thing, we need to obsessively figure out how to flip all that. We have to flip the direction we're in, not just do some reforms here and there.
Well, you're getting out and about as you're contemplating this run for governor. And I remember these various gambits to get an independent map commission set up, and it was goo-goos from the left and some conservatives or at least sort of center-right types on the right. And so there's general recognition of course, because if you're even somewhat honest, you look at this and you understand that everybody has been doing it, the left doing it much more aggressively than the right, generally speaking. and that's starting to change now. But that's, Illinois being the best example of the worst example, as Kristen Welker of all people had to inform Pritzker of. So I just wonder if that sort of stuff, even though it's a below the fold issue in terms of motivating people's votes, if you get feedback from people that are not Trump fans, not Republicans, but say, yeah, that he's being dishonest, that is not true, this is too far. It does do a discredit to him and others who say things like him. Do you get any of that feedback, or are they just people that are not inclined to be Republicans at the outset, just basically, look, no matter what he says or does, Pritzker or some of these other candidates, I'm with them because I don't like Trump, and that's the only thought I can contain in my head?
Well, it's hard for me to get a sense from the gerrymandering perspective, but I do meet people who are kind of just, you can tell they're kind of tired. The enthusiasm is gone for Pritzker. He's been popular, right? I mean, he's been popular enough to win 50% plus one, or right at 55%. The question is like this.
That's not really that popular, though.
Right, It's not that popular, right? And the more that he keeps doing these kind of things, I do think that, and I know some of the press people who are on the center left don't like it, but of course they still. They follow along because of all the money that he spends. But I think I get a sense that there's that opportunity there for people to say, hey, I'll go with something different. We don't need waves to change Illinois. We just need 5%. And hey, I want to make one point about something you made earlier with Bob Woodson, because this also feeds into the whole thing, and the crime and all that. And he says we don't need only to get rid of the weeds, but we need to seed.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that, and he's right about a lot of the things that he does and all the beautiful things that he does to bring people together. But I was looking at I looked at the largest 15 cities in Illinois. 15 largest cities in the states, in the country. And Chicago is the worst in black poverty. Chicago is worst in economic growth. Chicago has the highest black unemployment rate. There are no seeds in Chicago, and that's the problem, right? So again, it comes back to you can solve the crime problem some by being tough, but you got to grow. You got to create opportunity for these black community. Otherwise, they're trapped, and too many of them will fall in the wrong path. So this is, again, man, you got to really. We shouldn't be last on the list for all these things. We should be competing to be the best, and it's a mentality switch that we need to get to.
Ted Dabrowski, President of Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Dan. And
he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr., now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560. The Answer.
Your manufacturing production is only as good as your manufacturing team.
Monarch makes you better, plain and simple. They do an excellent job at recruiting the right people, qualified, experienced top talent that improve productivity.
Monarch Technical Services has been leading the Chicago staffing industry for manufacturing and engineering since 1987.
Their vetting process is bang on, and their payment terms show just how dedicated to helping they are. You have 6 months to pay the finder's fee, and if for any